You've got John here and JP. We're going to be conducting this webinar. Really appreciate everybody jumping on. We're going to probably give a couple, maybe a minute or two for any late kind of comers in here before we get started. But appreciate everybody joining. We're also going to do a quick poll in a moment, just asking a little bit about what industry you're in. As you guys all know, we service a wide variety of industries, and so it's good to get a pulse on that. Maybe that'll help us focus in on maybe certain aspects as we kind of go through this. So why don't we're at 3 o'clock. Why don't we kind of kick off with that poll?
Yeah, sure. Let's go right ahead. And
let's get that sent off. We can give it a little bit for people maybe jumping in too.
Sounds good.
To fill that out.
And something else worth mentioning is that if you happen to have any questions throughout this session, just send them our way, and at the end we'll be doing a Q&A, so we'll be getting to those first.
Yeah, so yeah, again, yeah, good idea. Yeah, throw those questions in. JP's going to be kind of reviewing those, so if we don't get them right away, we're going to do our best to get those certain points throughout this, or if you stick around to the very end, we're going to stick around for a little bit if we need to and make sure we answer all of those. So
absolutely.
Cool. I think that's probably good. And then let's close that poll and go ahead and just share the results. I think that's always interesting for everybody else jumping on. So we're about 61% corporate events, 35% sports, and then got a handful of worship folks. So appreciate you guys filling that out. That's awesome. And let's just kind of go ahead and jump in here. So quick little agenda of kind of what we're doing today is we're going to be highlighting two of our big features, or two of our most recent feature releases. Those are display view and prompter view. So we're going to talk through really in depth how to use those, show some examples of how existing companies are using them, and then go through some Q&A, highlight some resources for you guys all as customers and users to interact with us as you continue to use the software on different events. And then if we have some time, depending on which hopefully we will, could talk through a couple of two of our upcoming updates and just highlight a little bit on, won't be sharing too much information, images or anything, but just a couple highlights of two things we're working on that are coming up. So let's jump right into to display view first. So what I'll do here is I'm going to jump over to, I have just an example corporate run of show right here. And you'll see it's got, this is a pretty standard looking cue sheet in the corporate land. For those of you in sports, also called a game script. And in worship, it's called a worship schedule. So you just see here, just an already built out one. I've got some columns, layouts, and structured. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, in the top right, you're going to notice this eye icon. And this eye icon is how you navigate to different views in Shoflo. So for here, we're going to jump to a view that's called display view. And so what that's going to do is that's going to basically transmit this or transform this kind of rundown into a much kind of larger font sizes, and we split this up into a few different columns. And then to really activate this, what you're going to do is this is meant to be, and I'll show you an image in a moment, but this is really designed as a view on an external monitor. That could be put up in a control room. That could be up on a monitor in a presenter's lounge or a green room. This could be off of a court for marketing to see as they're coming on and off court or on and off the field for those of you in sports. It's basically from here, what you're going to do is you're going to enable tracking. So what I'm going to do right here is JP is actually the show caller in this specific show. And so I'm actually going to come on here, I'm going to turn that on. And now what that's done is that's now following along with JP. And as JP advances to the next element, it's, as you can see, scrolling automatically on this view. If you stay there for one moment. So what you'll kind of see is we're highlighting the previous element we're highlighting the element that's active now as this, the Shoflo blue tracking bar. And then you're also going to see from this view the two upcoming elements as well. From this view, you can also, we've instituted a switch to full screen, which is definitely great. It utilizes the whole capacity of the monitor. And again, this is just really meant to be a kind of a ghost or a dummy view that's hooked up in different monitors or whatever places around the production. And then you also see on the right of that, we have our clocks. So we have some timing, which is our start time, as well as duration. And then you can define one other column. And this would be one of your however many department columns you have. I have it set as presenter notes. You can pick from any of your columns that you have shown there. And then you can see a snippet of the text that are kind of displayed in that view. So it's kind of, and then if you even track to the, I guess a little bit lower in here, it's also going to allow you to track out of order. So jumps right down to a lower aspect of the show. You can jump up to a previous, previous element. This is really, good for rehearsals. If you're in a rehearsal meeting and you want to just have this displayed up so people can quickly see all of that, great use cases in kind of, how we already have people using this right now. Yeah.
Something worth mentioning about this view is that we normalize all of the text. So we're not going to carry over any of the formatting that you've applied because we want to ensure a certain look within this display view. So we're only showing the top 3 lines of content within both your items column and whatever column you've selected to be visible on the right-hand side. You'll notice an ellipsis whenever there's more content that we're not displaying. But the idea is you know where you are in show and in show and the gist of the notes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, if this is being, you don't, to set this up, you're obviously going to have to be mirroring a device. Now that device, for this example being, my screen, you can still scroll ahead to see certain aspects. As soon as that tracking is enabled, it's going to jump right to the next thing, which you can kind of see right there. In addition to what JP had identified and kind of some of this other stuff, we also noticed we've brought in our clocks, those being our time of day clock, which is customizable depending on your event time zone. And then also we have our item runtime clock, which is just to the left of that. That is for those of you who maybe don't know, that is a countdown clock based on the duration that you've defined in an element. And you can see for this one, we have a host intro, which is 2 minutes. You can see we're counting down from that 2 minutes. And then as soon as you jump into something else, another element, it's going to start that new item or that countdown clock from there. So yeah, it's a good little overview. You can, from this too, you can jump to different rundowns or shows that you have within an event. And then to get out of this view, you just simply press the eye icon in the top right and go back into any of the other views that you were looking to kind of go to, which for this example, I'm going to go back to our normal compact view, which is our kind of traditional grid layout. If you have any questions, again, continue to throw those things in on use cases or anything like that. Actually, one thing I wanted to do was I'm going to show you a couple images of this being used on a few production sites. So this one right here, a couple of us just got back from Vegas. We were at the LDI show, and one of our customers is the Golden Knights and NHL team. And so this was some images that we took on production for them. This is their control room, and you can see they've got, they've got this using this display view. So that was kind of what I meant by hooking this up in a control room or on another monitor. Really good use case for it. Helpful for the team to see, what's coming up from a quick glance from the back of the control room, which is where the grid layout is a little bit more limited with text sizes.
And one of you asked a question of whether or not you need a special hookup in order to do that kind of setup in the control room. You don't. It's essentially mirroring the display of a device or it being one of the monitors hooked up to a device running Shoflo.
Yeah, since Shoflo, as you guys all know, is a web-based software, you know, most people are hooking this up through an HDMI output or running it through a video control system or something like that. Good question though on that one. The last image I wanted to show was an esports example too on an event from a broadcast stream. The quality's not as good because they actually posted it on Instagram, but you can see in the top right here they've got their whole control room set up, all that type of stuff. They've got Shoflo even on some monitors as well, but using that right there in the top left, you can kind of see it getting used. So just wanted to share a couple of examples of kind of how that looks. Great, let's jump into the next one, which is the prompter view. So the way that we're going to do this is you're going to notice, again, I'm back to my example run of show. I've got some production notes. I've got presenter notes over here on the right-hand side. And the way that I'm going to do this is I can just hit this eye icon again. I can switch to prompter view. And you're going to see a couple things right now. And so let's talk through all of this. The idea of prompter view is to essentially replace the need for these, whether it's a presenter notes or whether that's a full imported script into a teleprompter system. Those are documents that are managed externally from the rundown. The value of this is all integrated into a single document. So if things change consistently in pre-production or on site, it's all in sync. You don't have to go back and re-upload a new script into a new text file into the other teleprompter system. So really powerful kind of way to do this. So let's run through some of the features and functionality in here. On the right-hand side, you're going to see a slide-out bar if you click it. And what this is allowing you to do is, one, you've got a similar looking drop-down menu of the different columns. So you can define which column you want to display in this prompter view. I'm actually going to switch to presenter notes because that's kind of how we designed this. And you can see we've got a scroll bar for text size. So you can define the text size depending on maybe size of the output or what that, potentially DSM or another monitor or something like that, what that looks like. You can also define the line height for the content. You can also define the scroll speed. So something baked into here is we have auto scrolling functionality, which I'm going to talk through a little bit once I get through this stuff and actually demo what this looks like from a user standpoint. But just know we do have auto scroll speed or auto scrolling for this content. You've got font weight you can adjust. You've got a read arrow you can bring in. You've also got force caps for different types of text. You also have a mirrored text for those that want to output this, run this through a mirror, behind a camera or something like that, depending on what your prompter setup is. And so then you also see a couple more notes. We actually brought in some last saved information, dates, and the name of the last edit in here, words. So this is actually like a word count and a character count. And then we even do an estimated kind of read time, which is calculated based on the words. So it's kind of a cool way to reference if this is a big script inside of here, kind of what that estimated read time is. And you can adjust the durations, depending on if you need to. Then on the left-hand side, you're going to see another scroll out or another slide out menu. This is a quick list of all of your elements. So you can see we've got item numbers. We have the element name right here, and I can quickly scroll ahead. I can actually click on another one and drop that there. And you're going to also see, if anybody's ever used our featured view, you're going to see a similar icon, this little paragraph icon. I think that's what it's called. And that's an indicator that there is content associated in that element, which is in the column that you've defined, which in this example is presenter notes. So this is how you can quickly jump to different things. This is also where you can enable or disable tracking. I'm going to turn that off for right now. just to demo a couple things. And so yeah, you can quickly jump to different stuff, and even jump to an entirely different show or rundown or game script that's inside of that individual event. So let's kind of demo this a little bit on how the interface works if you're working in here. So one of the biggest things that's really helpful in here is you can actually edit inline in this view. So I can actually come in here, double click, and I can bring up an edit menu, and I can add, another song or another thing right here. And I've got the same formatting options: bold, italicized, underline, highlighting. I can come in here and highlight specific, words, cells, stuff like that, and click save, and it's done. It's saved. It's across any user that's viewing this from the grid view in another location, whether that's on-site or off-site, or whether this is also getting mirrored to an output on a DSM on stage or something. These are all being updated in real time, which is really what makes this extremely valuable or extremely helpful. So this is kind of an example of what this looks like displaying presenter notes, which is more of like the bullet point functionality, not a fully scripted aspect. And this is outputted traditionally on a DSM, using the same functionality as the display view, which is mirroring a device or an operator traditionally, and outputting that to to a DSM. And so to jump through, let's see if I can find one that's got more content. So here we go. Good guess. So I've got this cell, which you can see, or this content, which is a much longer script. So I'm going to kind of demo the auto scrolling functionality and how that kind of works. So on the right hand side, I'm actually going to bring in our read arrow, and then I'll also maybe adjust a little bit on the scroll speed. And so to activate, so as a operator or a prompter operator on this, I'm actually, to start the scroll speed or to start the auto scrolling, I just simply press space bar, and that's going to just activate the scrolling. A couple of the keyboard shortcuts on this is, one of them is we've got up or down arrow on the keyboard will speed up or slow down this. So if I'm just clicking or holding down arrow, and that is just speeding that up a little bit, as you'll see. The up arrow will slow that thing back down. I can press the space bar, which will pause it. I can also come in here and press shift space bar, which will go back in reverse. And then again, space bar to stop it, and space bar to kind of reactivate that. So pretty simple. And the idea is to be simple and make it easy. You've got some other, I think we talked through all the rest of these things, font weight, and the mirroring and all of that. So really kind of a cool way to kind of display this stuff. Another really kind of cool way to do this is I'm actually going to have JP, if you can find this element, which we are in item 8, if you could just add a little bit of content from your view to the bottom of this. I think it's, yeah, that cell right there. Just maybe add a couple things like mid sentence. And I'm just going to enable this tracking, and you can see, even as in this view, JP populated some updates to this script right here in real time. So that could be an operator, that could be a front of house person, that could be a backstage person, but really making updates to this on the fly is I think what's going to make this extremely helpful. So yeah, that's kind of a good overview. Is there anything you can think of that I didn't touch on in this?
Well, there's a few questions
awesome.
relevant, but one of them is, yes, you can follow along with the show caller.
Oh, yeah.
So if Johnny was in that view and he happened to be...
So if I click this back, you can see I'm now following JP, and if he tracks into another element, then we're going to jump over into those different ones. So you can kind of see this. You can go like a hands-free mentality, have this mirrored, still have somebody behind it, but as they're tracking, as that show caller or whoever's tracking Q to Q, we will update the content of that, whether that's a full script or something like presenter notes or bullet points and things like that.
Yeah. And another question was, can you hide those drawers? And yes, you can.
Yep.
Take this to full screen as well.
Oh, yeah.
And
I didn't
only
show
be
the full screen.
Showing them without the little left and right drawers.
Yep.
And
let's
let's
see.
see
Are there any
here.
other questions? We can kind of
Specific to prompter.
can just kind of quick move along. We are getting to the Q&A styles
Yeah.
of the Q&A stuff. And continue to funnel those questions in if you guys have any additional thoughts or feedback or anything like that. Yeah, so let's kind of jump. Let me go back to see where we're at in here. So questions, fire those things away. Let's talk a little bit about the educational resources just to remind everybody. We have a Learn page, which is learn.shoflo.tv. And this is accumulation of a lot of articles. You've got a good, really easy to use search bar, just allows you to search for kind of questions, features, functionality, learn kind of how to do them a little bit. We've got some getting started resources, even things like, inviting in crew and things like that, all broken down in images and GIFs and videos as well, and video walkthroughs. That's correct. So that's, and then another note which is awesome, is we have a new article that we released probably about 6 months ago, but it's a release notes page, which is in our FAQs inside of the learn.shoflo.tv. And this is getting updated pretty consistently. Every time we do any release into, whether that's our web app or any of our native apps, you're going to see those populated here, identifying the features and even links to some of the Learn pages for those specific new features. So kind of a cool place to keep, if you want to keep a pulse on what we're releasing, that's going to be a great resource for you there.
Yeah, and before we jump into some of that other stuff, what some other questions regarding display view? One of them is, can display view show more than 4 to 5 lines at a time?
Yeah, it's a good question. As of right now, you can only display those 4. And another thing it actually reminded me to go over is, because this is based on somebody's logged in's device, like their unique user ID, you can also create multiple display views showing different content. So if one display view you wanted to show production notes, and on another one you wanted to display video notes or audio notes, you could set those up in multiple locations showing a little bit different content. But back to your question, as of right now, you are limited to what is shown in that view. If you do need to see more content on a view from a glance, I think your best bet would be to go back to like a compact view, like this even, and hide the columns, and even use browser zoom and increase maybe a little bit. That can maybe help accomplish that if that's something that's critical to your workflow.
Another question regarding display view is, as a show caller, can I still see my show flow when running this presenter view?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to answer that?
Well, to kind of touch on what he was saying, views are going to be specific to the user logged in. So if you, as a show caller, want to see your entire run of show, then that would be your user account logged in that way, and you can have a secondary account, which could be a dummy account logged into a separate device, and that device is the one that is mirrored up to a display in your booth or production, wherever that is.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's the important thing to know. Like, display view isn't designed, I don't think, and I mean, obviously we're gonna have a lot of people using it in different ways, but really the idea there is that it's on a large displayed monitor for multiple people to view from a glance. Now, so if you're a unique user and you have we do still have, for those of you who may or may not know, each user can customize their view to their liking of the show or of the rundown. So if you're an A1 and maybe you like to have a tab up on your device and your station, then maybe this is still the best practice for you. So, we're not trying to force this display view to be everybody's view. I think just it's a good thing to note on the production site, depending on what it looks like and some of the monitors and things like that, and what stations look like. That could be a really good option. We've had some really good feedback from teams that have found success using it.
Yeah, and another good option is taking the item runtime full screen. It's actually something someone asked about, whether or not you can take it full screen. And if Johnny's
So I'm going to just click track on this this element right here, item 3. You're going to see item runtime clock. So from here, you can click on that clock, make that item runtime clock full screen, and then similar fashion, I've seen teams on site do this where they've put this into maybe a DSM, maybe backstage monitor, maybe on an iPad somewhere displaying. But this is going to update as you advance element to element, and it's just going to follow that item runtime clock and reset every time you track into a new element with a new duration.
Yeah.
And
a nuance on that comment about putting the display on the iPad, because that is actually what the question was about. If the iPad is looking at the non-mobile version of the website, then they can activate this full screen item runtime by clicking on it or tapping on it.
And if you get hung up on that, send us a message. It's a little bit of a hacky approach where you gotta kind of get a little bit more technical. So if you get hung up on it, send us a message and we can.
But it is something that you can do on other mobile devices, such as the Microsoft Surface. Works really well, and it's less expensive. In fact, it's one of the devices we would recommend it for that particular use case. Let's see some of these others. Going from item to item, you already showed.
Going from item to item is just on the left. You can do that slide out bar, click it, or if you can go hands-free on that and allow just to follow along with that show color.
In regards to the scroll speed, whether or not it can be manually operated, yes, you can both increase and decrease the speed of the scroll if you still want to use that automated scroll, or you can not use the automated scroll and just use a scroll wheel or a trackpad or whatever it is that you, or even a shuttle or scrub wheel, whatever.
Yeah, you can map any of these Bluetooth or whatever things. We actually had one we tested internally, so you can map those little controllers to a browser and use the up down arrows as part of the scroll and all that type of stuff, or you can use just the quick up and down arrows to speed up or slow down that scroll speed. Let's see, anything else as of right now? We can continue going through a couple things. How are we doing on time?
We have just a few minutes left, so maybe we just move on with the teaser.
Yeah, let's move on. Continue to ask those questions though if you guys have any.
And we'll send a response afterwards if we don't get to them today.
Yep. So cool. So something else to talk about, or other just kind of resources for you guys to be users and as users and on these, using it on events. One thing that if you've been with us as a customer for a while, you know that we love feedback. Our customers, you guys all are really helpful in the way that we create and release new stuff. Even these things that we are showing you today have come from not only our own intuition in the industry, but also from customers like yourselves. So we actually have created a new platform or a new location for all of you as users to submit and upvote your own requests for stuff. Now that could be an all new thing. That could be an iteration on a feature, maybe in prompt view, maybe in display view. But it's just the website, and we'll can you maybe drop that in the chat too? It's just shoflo.candy.io/feature requests. And just submit something. You can search for existing ones. You can see trending. You can also go right into an existing request and engage in conversation. We'll oftentimes ask customers to explain a little bit about maybe why it's useful and help really us engage in trying to identify whether this is something that we're going to build or not, or something we'll maybe push off to a later point. So this is going to be a great platform, I think, for you guys to help engage. And any of you who have been already doing that, thank you. It's extremely helpful for us on all of your kind of thoughts and feedback. Okay, do you want to talk about the user sessions?
Yeah, these are an opportunity for all of you to help guide the direction of the product, really. Give us your feedback about the kinds of use cases that you would imagine future features being used, or maybe some things that we aren't doing yet that you would really like to see. We have an avenue for you to share that kind of feedback with us, signing up for a user feedback session. And you can do that by using
I'll drop this calendar link right in here. But
link.
Yeah, there's a link. You just book a spot on the calendar. Really, it's more of a technical. So this would be awesome for, really anybody. But yeah, just to get some insights on how you're using it it's more of a technical approach to getting some thoughts and feedback. So any of you guys who are open to that, it's always helpful. Yeah.
And lastly, what's next? What will we be talking about during our next quarterly webinar, and the things that we're actively working on right now?
So the first one, and we won't spend too much time on these. I know we're kind of wrapping up a little bit, and I want to leave some time for some other questions. But we're going to be doing a PDF export update. Couple of the high level stuff that's going to be coming into that will be custom page breaks, which I know a lot of you have been telling me that's something that's important, especially a lot of you in sports. The next is just going to be really optimizing that process, making it a little bit easier, and also speeding up the time it takes to generate those PDFs. Because at the end of the day, we know the PDFs and print offs are still a critical part of a lot of your workflows, and so we want to continue to iterate on that. And then also with that too is the ability to save preset PDFs. So really, when you can customize, what the PDF is with the page breaks, and then be able to pull those up quickly or save them for later use. Not have to go through that whole process again every time you go to generate a PDF. So those are the three. There'll be other things involved in that and other features, but those are the three top of the line. I think the more significant updates that you'll see with that. The other for those of you that are in sports, we have a feature. Premium kind of upgrade for customers called the Global Element Manager. I'm not going to spend a ton of time explaining what that is. You can check it out on our website at any point in time and learn a little bit more about it. But we are going to be releasing a handful of updates to that, iterations from a lot of you that have been using it through the last, coming up on really 8 months. Just to highlight on a couple of those, multi-tags. So the ability to tag multiple elements, which allows you to filter, find them a lot quicker. So you kind of see a little bit of some kind of run through teaser GIFs here, ability to assign multiple tags so that you can quickly filter, find a lot easier. So it could be a sponsorship and then, McDonald's, and then you can quickly pull up, those. So some cool use cases there. And with the multi-tags, we'll be removing the categories. So we'll automatically be creating category or tags for those categories that were created. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about any of you that are already existingly using that feature.
Just lots of
that's really kind of a good high level. There's a little more stuff in there, but that's one of the more significant ones. I think also inactive and active. Those of you who are dropping those elements in, seeing what's active in a show, what's inactive, to kind of streamline some of those processes.
So there's a few questions I think we can get to quickly. Can you control who can edit your script? A script is usually going to be contained within a department column, and you can limit who can edit department columns. Only contributors or higher permission level can, and that's how you would restrict that. Does one operator control the prompter scroll while another iOS advancing items? You can have these things be separated, these duties be delegated out to different people, but I guess you could also have them be done by the same person. But yes, prompter view was meant to be run by a script operator or prompter operator.
Yeah, and if any of you are those roles, we'd love to hear more thoughts, and anybody who's testing this out and playing with it. That's kind of the whole point of Canny and using that as a place for you to offer us feedback. But we will be iterating as we do with a lot of things on this stuff. So if there's ideas or concepts or things that would be more helpful, definitely send those to JP, myself, or in the in-app chat, as a quick way to kind of send us, ideas and thoughts and stuff like that.
Some more questions.
Yeah.
Is there a way to deploy display view link without having to log in? No. Display view leverages real-time functionality, and what you might be thinking of is guest pass. Guest pass doesn't have access to any of the real-time functionality of Shoflo. You actually have to be a user logged into the app to get real-time changes, follow along with the show color, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of presenters will want to have a printed out version of their script. Is there a way to create that? Yes, and Johnny can show you what a Word export looks like.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We have as part of our export process, we have a Word export, or oftentimes people call it like a script export. The way to do that is it's in the download section. So I've got some notes and stuff in here. Click download. You're going to go to the second to bottom. We've got a Word export. The Word export exports out as a docx file. So it's meant to be brought into Word or printed like that in more of a long form format. You're just in the left-hand side. You can define the content that's brought into this. And you can kind of see here I've got some disabled and enabled by default. The most important thing is you're locating the column that is the script that you want to export, and you want to identify that as your hero column. So if I go to like presenter notes and I click hero, that's going to now be my hero content, which is at the bottom. Got audio in there, maybe I don't want that, or production notes. The rest of those will stack on top of it. So it's really meant to be, if you're in sports, what you likely have always done in the past, and for PA announcers and stuff like that. This could also be used as a way to export out presenter notes for presenters. They want a hard copy on this podium or something like that. Other ways to quickly do it. You can also override and define the font size. This will override the font sizes that you've defined in Shoflo. So if you need to quickly just make this font larger for somebody, you can do that on a per download basis. And then, yeah, you just click download, download down as a docx file, and I'd encourage you to kind of play around with it. You're going to kind of see it. I actually don't even have Word on my computer, so it's not going to show it very well. Yeah.
Another question. Prompter operators sometimes have their own hardware peripherals like mouses or scrub wheels, things like that. Yeah. Yes, you can integrate them, and you can sometimes on those different peripherals map certain keyboard shortcuts to them. And if you do that, then you can use it for the prompter view. So yeah, that is something we tested, and it would work. Let's see. Oh, no, that one I couldn't understand.
Let's see.
Is there any print or PM in case we need to? Yeah, all right, we already covered that. All right.
We think we're...
if changes are made in real time, they're not highlighted, they will just show up. Every customer has the ability to set up their own process for last minute changes and bringing attention to them. One would be to highlight that last minute change within the rich text environment of each cell.
Yep. We are recording this. I don't know if you did.
Yes.
We are recording this as we did with the last quarterly webinar. We're going to be editing it a little bit, putting it in a post, and emailing it out to all of you guys, so you have it for re-reference.
And the last question is, how do you assign script to segments of the show flow? So if James moves from second presenter to fourth, move it in show flow.
If I follow this question correctly, and maybe if you got a second to clarify this, the script is tied to whether that's a full script like this or bullet points. That content is tied to the element. So if I move, for example, this Albert down to after, Adam H, you're going to see we've moved it. That means that the content displayed, if I'm tracking now through a show, it's going to be in the new correct order that I've just changed. If I'm understanding you correctly, and apologize if that's not an answer to your question.
Worst case scenario, I think that answers another question that I saw earlier, which is the scripts are self-contained or contained to the cell, so you break it up the way that.
Yeah, it's a good point. If it's a very if it's a long 20-minute fully scripted thing, that could be challenging because as you can see right here, we are auto expanding the content of a cell. Now, I always encourage people, if you're working in here and this is a distraction, you can always quickly hide it and kind of collapse up the content to make this a little bit more workable if you're not working on the script, and you just bring it back up whenever you are. But one other option could be you could break up this script into multiple elements. So if you have a presenter, you could have an item, item 1, 2, 3, 4, that's all part of that that presentation, and just split up the script in multiple parts if it's maybe too much content.
All right, well, that's it for today. We've already gone 10 minutes over on our session. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on here. Just to reiterate, if you guys have ideas or would like to vote up some features, go ahead and click on that link that we shared in the chat, the canny.io/feature requests. And that last person who asked, do we have to spell check? That's actually one of the things that's on there that you can vote up for now.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one. Not quite in there yet.
Yeah, it's not in there, and there are some browser plugins that you could play with.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and yeah, we'll see you at the next quarterly webinar.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.